Welcome back to The Art of Encouragement by Katie Baldwin. This week, I'm going to dive into something that no one really likes to talk about: waiting. It's not anything that any Christian really wants to be told is waiting. And then on top of that, to be told to be still and wait upon God. And personally, I have battled with this. I've, have had moments where I feel like I got victory over it, and then as soon as I have victory over it, I seem to fall right back into this repetition of just whining about why do I have to wait. And even though I have battled with it, and I have had many times that I just question it over and over and over, I think I finally have come to terms with the fact of the why. Now, does why make it any easier? Not really, but at least I can hold on to that and understand that there is a purpose behind it. There is a reason behind it. God doesn't just particularly say, okay, I'm going to sit you over here on the shelf or sit you over here or even have you be in the midst of it, but still waiting. And when I think of my artwork, or I think of the things when it comes to, like when you have a gift and you don't really understand why it's not being utilized, it is a part of the waiting. So I'm going to name this week Waiting on Purpose. So let's dive into it. Waiting. Wow, what an exciting topic. That's the first thought that comes to me. But I think the reason that I decided to go with talking about this is because it is a major part of my walk. I think it's a major part of a lot of people's walks, obviously, because God has things that he does within the waiting. But for me, waiting seems to be like in the top 3, if not number 1, that I've had to deal with. I started doing my artwork about 30 years ago, and by no means, no way, nothing was I ready at all to jump straight into doing stuff with my artwork. Like I said before, I look back at some of the stuff that I produced back then, and it looks very juvenile, very, just, it's not anything that I would ever sell to anybody. Let me put it that way. But people back then really liked it, and they talked about it. But I just believe that's the encouragement and the anointing that was upon it, and it gave me the, that extra little push, that extra little nod that I needed to not give up, because I don't think that anybody ever starts out in anything and they're like, oh, they arrive on the scene and they're perfect and they're ready to go and they're polished. No, it takes repetition, Being faithful to that repetition, in other words, being consistent and diligent, that's where it really takes the patience and the obedience to stay involved. And I think that's where a lot of people miss out on so much that God has for them, is because they're not willing to be diligent. They're not willing to be patient. Have I been willing and patient on everything? No, absolutely not. I've tried to be. I will have to say with my art career, even though it wasn't very successful in the very beginning, I didn't let that bother me in the beginning, because I kept thinking, this is my time to learn and to grow and to process into something. And I just took one step after another. I didn't really think about it. But as time went on, that's where it got more and more difficult, that something wasn't taking place. And especially, let's talk about this. When you truly believe that it's something that God has given you, that it's a gift or it's a calling or it's a direction that God has kind of said, this is where I want you to go, walk ye forward into it. And you do so. And nothing, absolutely nothing goes the way that you think it should. In fact, quite honestly, it's kind of like trying to dig a hole in the sand. It just keeps filling up, or trying to hold sand and it falls in the cracks of your fingers. It just seems like it's ever moving, it's ever not happening, and it's very frustrating and it's disappointing, and it's hard to stay faithful. It's hard to stay, as I would say, diligent. But I think that's part of the process. It has to be part of the passion. To have a passion doesn't mean that you don't have moments of ebb and web, and that it has to do with not giving up. It has to do with, is it truly a passion or was it a hobby? There's nothing wrong with hobbies. I love hobbies. I think hobbies are great. But what's the difference between a hobby and a passion? I don't know if this is a very informative way of saying this, but this is just the way of my thinking. A hobby is something that can come and go. You like doing it, you do it for a little while, and you move on. A passion is something that even when you get sick and tired of it, or you're frustrated with it, or you're over it, or anything negative that you could say, but yet you still come back to it, you don't let go of it, and you just pick it back up. I don't know how many times. I'm going to guess maybe 4. That 4 times that I got to the place where I thought I heard God call me to do something, pursuing, going forward, doing my artwork, presumably, to make money from it. And I would go through those steps, go through the motions, work hard, be diligent, do everything. And then, man, boom, I would hit that wall. Now, sometimes I look back on some of them and I think, did I hit that wall and just give up and walk away because I just didn't want to battle anymore? I didn't want to try anymore. I just didn't go forward. Or was that just a place that I was supposed to be? And I was able to walk away, recoup, take that as a learning lesson. Because absolutely nothing we go through is wasted. I can look back on every single mistake, every single rabbit trail, every single place that I went forward thinking this is where God, wanted me to go, and it didn't, quote unquote, turn out the way that I thought it should. I can look back at every single one of those instances and know that I gleaned something, I grew, and I learned from it. Now my biggest problem is not letting those situations and circumstances, because it has been 30 years, be a hindrance. And I think in starting back for yet one more time to try to sell my artwork and to start this podcast and to be very diligent in the different things that I'm doing. And let me just say, when I say being diligent, as diligent as I can possibly make myself be. Because am I being completely 100% diligent? Nope. I have to admit that to myself. There are some things that I will let limitations tell me I can't do. But they're not limitations that I can't do them. It's just that they're out of my comfort zone. And I'm concerned that I can't do them, or I don't want to do them, or I'm too lazy, or maybe I am still concerned about the way that people look at it or will interpret it. I'm not stuck on age. I'm really not. I mean, I know that anybody of any age can do anything, as long as you know that you're walking in the situation that God has called you to do it. But I also know that there are stereotypical things that different ages or different placements of where you're at can sometimes make harder mountains for you. Still doesn't mean that you can't take the mountain. Well, let me back up and explain myself. I'm turning 60 in a couple of days. I get on social media and I just look at people that have just, it seems naturally that they can get on and they can speak or they can get in front of the camera. And my mind first wants to tell me that it's because of my age that I don't want to do that. But that's not the truth, because there's people of all ages that do this. And that's my own limitation. That's basically me putting a fence around myself, not letting myself get out beyond that fence. And the truth of the matter is God says that fence is not there. I can go out and run and go and do anything, that nothing is impossible, that He has given me the ability, He's given me the go. It's just a matter of what my own ideas of limitations are. So as I was going through this whole process of thinking, okay, waiting, because that seems to be something that I've done a lot of, and I still am. And I really felt like the Lord brought me to this, that waiting on purpose means, that waiting prepares us for the purpose and strengthens our faith and teaches us perseverance. And buddy, I'm going to tell you what, perseverance is something that I have learned. Because constantly coming back and not giving up my passion means you've got to have a lot of perseverance to not have a success in the financial area that you really want and you seem to try to get and not get it. Where is the line? Well, the line is do I still love it? Yes. Do I still want to do it? Yes. Do I still believe God's going to open a door? Yes. Then that means that I keep pursuing that. And that's where the persistence comes in. The next thought that came to me is that the wait makes room for us to have that purpose grow more inside of us, that we grow stronger, that we grow more resolute to what it is that God is giving us and showing us and wanting us to do with our gift. And that's any gift, because we all can walk through situations where we feel like we're not being used or we're not being to the full of what God has for us. And I've met a lot of people that feel that. Why is it not shorter? One of my things that I think I finally have come to where, even though, like I said, I still have to battle it and I still have to fight it, but the resolute that I came to is that that there are just some things that you have to learn, and it's not a matter of just learning it. It's growing into it. Think about going into high school or college as a freshman and where you're at and what you believe and you think and what you know, and then coming out as a senior. How much more you know, how much more confident you are. You're not the same person that you were. And it's a good thing. You've learned so much and you've grown, and the capacity of who you are and what you can do is at an entirely different level. So there was a person that I was listening to, and it was just an offhanded comment that they made, and it got me thinking. And I thought, wow, how profound. As we're sitting here waiting and waiting and waiting, as far as I'm concerned, what have I done in that time of waiting? Am I only sitting and waiting, hoping and a wishing and a praying? Or am I really doing something about it? Because we know very well that when God says, be still and know that I am God, by no means does he mean by that verse that literally to be still and do nothing and to know that he's God. It means work with me here. Be still in knowing that I can do this. Listen to me, follow me, and let me guide you. Let me help you. Let me tell you to jump when you need to jump. Let me tell you to sit when you need to sit. Help me help you by being still and listening to me so that I can take you to the place that you need to be. And Lord knows I've kicked and screamed the whole way in many situations of not having what, quote unquote, I wanted. But as I've gotten older and, starting to think more and more, okay, I'm kind of getting tired of running into the wall and banging my head against the wall. Maybe I should start listening to what he's saying. Maybe I really should be still and listen to the Lord. So the next thing that came with that revelation was, when we finally get to that place of the now, that God opens the door. Have you waited all this time, or let me use this personally, have I waited all this time complaining and moaning and groaning and just debating with God that he hasn't done this, he hasn't done that, or, I'm just being honest with you, I'm being transparent. Why do I have to wait? Why can't it come now? Why? To where did I use that time that I waited in the most profitable way for me to go forward? I make this joke sometimes to people, and I was like, what does the dog do if he runs after he keeps running after the car and he finally gets a hold of the tire? It's not going to be a good scene for the dog, but the dog's always running after the tire of the car, barking at it to go get it. But he thought this through. If the dog could think this through, he'd be like, okay, I can bark at it, but I'm not going to keep running. I'm certainly not going to grab onto it because that would be really, really bad for me. Have I taken this time that I've been waiting and used it to prepare myself for the go? We see athletes, those that do stuff on, a college level or a professional level or even the Olympics. They train and train and train for that moment. They don't just sit around waiting, especially let's use the Olympics for example. They don't wait every 4 years just to all of a sudden show up and do their craft. They painstakingly go day by day in every area that could possibly benefit them, their body, their training, their food, their sleep, all the different areas to make themselves to be the best that they could possibly be in their certain area of sport so that they could go and have the best possible chance of winning the gold medal. And so it makes me think, have I been doing that same thing? Have I just been waiting for the 4 years of the Olympics to show up and be like, oh my gosh, it opens, there it is? Or have I been taking my craft and working hard on it? And I don't just mean like my craft as far as like art or even the prophetic. Let's use the prophetic side. You have been called to a certain office, or you've been called to be a pastor, you've been called to be evangelist. What are you doing in those small moments for the big moment? As far as the prophetic would go, that would mean that you're spending constant time with the Lord, that you're constantly washing yourself with the Word so that you can know the Word. And when God needs to pull it up out of you, well, you've actually read it and you have it. You may not be able to remember it perfectly, but I believe that if you take the time to read and read and read, that when the Holy Ghost brings it up to you, you will be able to perfectly come out with what needs to be said because you took the time to be studious and put it inside of yourself. And then you have to take those moments of stepping out to people and giving words to them, even if it may make you look stupid and even if you are wrong. Because you have to start tuning and listening to that voice speaking to you, not your voice, but the voice of the Lord as you give prophetic words. As far as my art, yeah, okay, I can get it and draw and draw and draw, but there is way more to being, in the business of art than just doing the art. In fact, most of your work comes on being prepared to step out. I mean, I've asked myself this question before. If someone out of the blue contacted me and said, oh my goodness, I need right now 100, well, I'll go even higher, 500 of your, notepads. Well, do I know where I'm going to go? Do I know how long it's going to take? Do I know my price breakdown? Do I know how I'm going to fulfill this order in a timely way, in a profitable way, in a way that will turn around and have reoccurring, orders? I can answer that with honesty right now. I would say I'm about 60% of a yes. I may not have all the answers. So that's why I'm doing this podcast today, because I want to speak this podcast to myself as much as I want to say it to you. Is that sometimes we think we're ready, and we are kind of ready, but we're not 100% ready. And the situation is you can't be to the place where you're not going to have any hiccups and you're not going to have any situations that you have everything perfectly figured out. But if you have all the little foundational things figured out and you're ready and you're prepared for those things, then that means that when the hiccup comes or, the oh my gosh, out of the blue moment kind of thing happens, you are prepared and able and ready to be able to jump on that. And you're not having to go through, you got 5 different fires that you got to put out. You only have one that you need to put out. So I say this with all honesty that being prepared, making myself approved, so that when the moment comes, that quote unquote now happens, that I'll be ready. And I pray that I haven't wasted my time in this moment of waiting. And if I have, praise God, I ask Him now to redeem the time for me, that I start now at this moment so that it can be changed and I can make that difference, so that if you were to ask me in another month, are you still at 60%? That I can joyfully and gleefully say, no, I'm 100% ready for everything that I think is coming. Of course, that is my prayer, my hope. But I still want to take it a step deeper. All this that I'm speaking of, I want to turn it and place it in the right posture for myself, and I hope for you too. That as much as we can, stand to the side and look at what we're doing, regardless of what it is, to our gift, to our placement of following God, the truth of it is, as I said, the posture of it is to daily being before Him. Now, we hear this, I'm sure, from everybody that we ever listen to, that it is so important for us to spend that time. And when I mean time, yeah, I do mean that quiet time that you spend, seeking the Word, letting it wash you, and praise and worship and listening and just all those things. But what I mean is, when I say posture, I literally mean again, let's go back to the Olympics. For a runner, they're not just standing there, without attention or without the quote unquote posture of not being ready to run. They get into a posture that betters them to spring out of the gate as fast as they possibly can, to have the advantage, to better their chance to be the one that crosses the finish line first. And I think we need to kind of take that analogy, because, even Paul uses a runner, in the Word. He uses that quite a few times as an analogy. And I'm going to lean on that myself. If we take the posture that we're just waiting, and we're just kind of standing there waiting on God, and the gun goes off to go, how in the world can we make the best time to cross the finish line, even if we are the fastest one? No doubt that if we were ready, if we were positioned to immediately spring into action, to go as fast as we possibly could out of the gate, into the run, to the finish line, we would even have a better time, world record time. That is most definitely a runner's goal. They most definitely want to be the first one to cross the line, but they're also going after the goal to be the best. And our goal should always to be the best. And I'm not going to make it so much, I need to be the best person, doing art, or the best person doing something prophetically. I need to be the best daughter that I can possibly be. And the only way that I can do that is to truly search my heart to why I'm not taking the time, or why I'm not taking thought-provoking moments of figuring out what I can do and be to be better. And I know for myself and many people, I think we can look at some of these situations and circumstances, and it's such a humongous mountain that it's kind of easier to ignore it, or maybe not dive into it, because there's so much that we could possibly be doing or doing better. I mean, I know that sometimes overwhelms me. I can watch this video, or I can listen to a blog, or I can read something, and they can list, the 10 greatest things you could do to be better at this. And I don't do one of them, because it can overwhelm me with the wealth of information of being, better, to better myself. And I think my goal this time around, much more so than any time of me restarting my artwork yet again throughout the years, is that I will latch on to one thing, so that one thing I can tackle. And even if I can't do it to the utmost, I'm still doing my best to pursue it and to apply it to the best of my ability, and then leaning upon God, knowing that what I give, he's going to run with. Because all he wanted for me to do is to trust and to believe and to take a step. Just like the word says, faith without works, it's dead. I mean, I can have all the faith in the world, but if I don't stand up and do something, then, the word is saying that that's not a good thing. Or I could do the opposite. I could work and work and work, but not really put any faith in the fact that God's going to do it for me. It's got to be the combination, the right time, the right moment, the right season, everything coming into a line so that it clicks. And I think that that's what a lot of people see when they will see somebody like overnight, quote unquote, success. Oh, it's an overnight success. No, because, I guess there's luck. I guess we could go to the worldly thing and say that there's luck. But how long does luck run? Even they say it in the worldly world. When will the luck run out? That's the difference between us and the world's perspective. Ours doesn't run out. It's ever giving. God makes the way where there is no way. He provides. It just has to come from us also, and giving the platform to work with. Again, the foundational thing is God speaks of in the Word. Are you building on sand? Are you building on a firm foundation? Let's think about a firm foundation. A firm foundation is putting everything, as I said, the right time, the right place, the right season, all into line. Trusting and believing and knowing that even if time passes, that's irrelevant. There was one time I was at a prophetic conference, and there was like leadership at the church that I was at that after the prophetic conference that day, everybody that was in a leadership position was to come to the back, and there was going to be like a one-on-one kind of conversation with this prophetic gentleman that was there. And there were probably about 50 of us back there. I was in the lead position of intercessor and over the prayer team. And I remember sitting in the back just kind of listening, because there were a lot of people that were asking great questions. And I'm not usually somebody that will automatically, speak out a question. I'm kind of one that will tend to listen to what everybody else is saying. And then if I have a question, I'll ask. So I just sat back real quietly listening to everything that was being said. And quite honestly, there were a couple of people that probably should have done the same thing I did, because the moment they opened their mouth, I knew it wasn't going to come good. What was coming out of that gentleman's mouth was not going to be harsh. It's going to be truth, which turns out to be harsh. And I am glad I got to listen to all that. But there's one thing out of everything he said, and this was many years ago. I mean, we're talking probably over 10 years ago, that he said, and to this day, I remember it very much. And he was being kind, even though when I say this, it may not sound like it's kind. But sometimes the truth is what we need to hear more than something that pats us on the back to make us believe something more so than what it needs to be. And I think a lot of people in the world these days needs to hear some corrective wisdom so that you can prune yourself a little bit so that you will come out and bloom even greater. The gentleman said that there's a reason that he was standing in front of us and we were sitting in the chairs. Because if it was God's purpose for us to be standing up there, having the conversation or doing whatever needed to be done, that we would be up there. That God is not holding one single solitary person back from anything. That if you wanted to look at somebody that was holding you back, you probably needed to go look in the mirror. And yes, there were some people that you just needed to wait on timing. But many people, it's not just timing. It's that in the season that you're at, you're there for a reason. And you need to be astute and very aware and focused into why you're in that season. Now, okay, I did say that was 10 years ago, and here I am. But in between that, I did let go of my artwork. At that time that gentleman was speaking to us, I was not doing my artwork. In fact, I was doing something entirely. I was actually doing cookies at that time. I totally diverted into doing cookies and did that for 5 or 6 years. And then quit that and then didn't do anything for a while. And then here I am back doing the artwork again. Because the passion was there. And I have many people come up to me saying, are you still doing your cookies? I loved your cookies. I mean, God must have anointed those cookies, because people talk about my recipe being like just beyond any other sugar cookie recipe that they've ever had. Because what I did is I made sugar cookies and decorated them in my own quote unquote artsy way. And I just laugh, because I just took a basic recipe and did it the way that I thought I wanted to do it. The only thing that I probably did differently than anyone else, which is not any grand secret, but I weighed out in grams instead of, pounds or ounces. And so I just kind of laugh at that, because, again, it was God's anointing. What I put my hand to, he blessed, he anointed. And he was going to anoint or bless whatever I walked into. But for him, he didn't care whether I was doing cookies or whether I was doing art. He liked the fact that I was using the encouragement, the blessing, the place of wanting to give and be and do and be a conduit of his love, praying over those cookies or praying over the artwork, all that kind of stuff. But cookies were not my passion. The artwork most certainly is. And here I am back at it. And all I can say is I'm where I'm at because it's where God wants me to be. Whether I want to go sit over in a corner and have a moment because it's not where I want to be, then I guess I need to take a little more time and have introspective of what else do I need to learn? What else can I do? What else do I need to let go of? What else do I need to glean and put inside me? And I think that if there's that one thing, like I said, before, that helps me, is that I'm being so much more aware of who I am, whose I am, and my surroundings of the God thing that he has in us, that it's so important to take each day and to live that moment, even if I'm in the waiting and it's not where I want it to be. But I'm taking that moment and using it to the fullest and getting one thing done. If I just get one thing done that I believe that I'm supposed to do, then I feel accomplished. And then the next day and the next day and the next day. And I'm further along in my walk with my artwork, even though it still may not be where my little mind wants it to be. I am still just steps away from seeing something that I believe that I've been waiting for years, because I have taken the process of not being resentful from where I'm at, enjoying the journey, learning from the journey, and holding on to my passion, that if I never, ever, ever reach financial success, that it doesn't matter. Because the success that I received through the peace and the joy of being able to encourage and just enjoy what he has for me and to be the conduit of that to other people, then I have most definitely become successful and one of the richest women around. I hope you enjoyed today The Art of Encouragement by Katie Baldwin. I share a new podcast every Thursday. I hope you will come back next week to see what God drops into my spirit to share. If you would like to contact me, you can find me on artinspirations.com or at Etsy at Art Inspiration by KB or on Instagram at Art Inspirations. If this is your tribe, make sure you like, subscribe, comment on any podcast app.